Hey everybody! So, this is not going to be the first of its kind that surfaces on YouTube.
Yeah, we're certainly not the first nor the last.
Behind, considering a lot of people have already shared theirs.
Folks who are going to talk about Shadow and Bone.
We took the day off last Friday in order to binge the entirety of Shadow and Bone, the Netflix series adapted from Lee Bardugo's best-selling Grishaverse novels. And we had a lot to say about it, as you'll probably see in the blog clips. But before we go to those, because they're very spoilery since we did one after every single episode.
We were so kind of bashful about the spoilers after the first episode, mostly because there wasn't too much to
spoil.
But
as it went on, we were just
like, we gotta talk about this. So, and we did.
And we did. But we decided that we were gonna do a slightly short, hopefully short.
Hopefully short. We'll see how long this
like
comes
overall
out.
Reaction to the show itself. So
and it's fresh too, like right afterwards. It's gonna be like, so it's kind of like half a vlog, half a like a, you know, like a look back. But it is what
in case you couldn't already tell, we thoroughly enjoyed watching the Shadow and Bone adaptation. I think we can safely say that it's probably one of our favorite and one of the best
adaptations,
book to show adaptations we've had the fortune of seeing. Really,
such a well thought out sort of adaptation.
And it's interesting because it's a fantasy adaptation, which sometimes can be hit or miss depending on how they choose to adapt it.
Depending on how the actors, if they're good.
Yeah, so the cast, the production team, the creative team, the crew, everyone's efforts really paid off because it all came together beautifully.
We just non-stop raving, just sort of about
which you'll probably see in all of these spoilery blog clips.
And it's such a masterclass in juxtaposition as well. Without further ado, I guess, we do hope you enjoy.
We hope you enjoy all the spoilery thoughts. Good morning, friends!
Pleasant morning to all.
It's time to finally watch the Shadow and Bone Netflix series.
That's true.
We originally were going to wake up at 3 a.m., but, you know, life happened.
I can't.
And now we're just awake at a normal hour on Friday. But we do have the day off, so we are going to be watching the entire show today. Very excited. We got to see 10 minutes, a sneak peek preview
it was a
yesterday.
good 10 minutes, yeah.
It was a really good 10 minutes, and I just sense that I'm going to be screaming a lot, though I will try to hold it in for the sake of, you know, actually watching what's going on.
Also, did anybody read too much into that Ben Barnes moment when he was like, my favorite character, you know who you are? I'm like, why do they know who they are?
Who?
And why aren't you saying it? Anyway, that's just me.
Anyway, so far, all I will say about the first 10 minutes is I love the crows, which, no surprise. But the biggest thing is that I'm convinced Mal and Alina should be together. It literally took 5 minutes.
That's true,
and I'm just like, I can see it.
It's super believable.
I believe it.
Cast, yeah.
And they did such a good job, the two of them, just having that sort of like ease of the friendship that Mal and Alina are supposed to have.
Yeah, which is...
And that history, too.
Yeah, which is a contrast to... And Alexa pointed this out. That's not how it sort of is in the book, or at least that's how it comes off in the book.
Yeah, it took me a little longer to get invested in them in the book.
And yet here, immediately, I'm like, oh my god, these two are friends.
They're friends, and they have a really deep friendship. It's not just like, oh, we knew each other at the orphanage. No, nothing like that. It's like, we have these secrets, and we have an agreement.
And when they were rattling off, like, their
rules.
the rules, those felt lived in.
Yeah,
like, it felt
they're
like,
so cute.
Like, there was so much nuance to that. Like, they were proven many times over the years.
It's great.
Sounds great.
What else? I love the costumes. I love the music. Cannot wait to keep watching. So we're gonna do that, and then we'll come back after the first episode and just tell you our other impressions of what's happening. After all, we have not yet seen Ben Barnes.
No, we
He's the only one of the main 6 that does not show up in the first 10 minutes.
There were
which makes sense. Which makes sense. But we haven't seen him living and breathing any more than he does in the trailer, I mean. Yeah. But we haven't seen him living and breathing and like playing his role yet.
That's true.
Which is very exciting. Anyway, we're very excited for the show. Very excited for Lee that the show is finally here. We'll report back soon. Okay, so we just finished watching the first episode. Mighty appreciation. Wait, you tell us what you just said.
Alina Starkov ruining everyone's day is my new favorite thing. That is the new energy that I want to channel and take with me wherever I go. Just ruining everybody's day.
2 things. I really like how they have played up the Mal and Alina relationship, because it really is believable to me now.
That
I believe they're best friends. I believe they have a history. I believe they would do just about anything for each other.
And the way they look at each other, there's this insane kind of almost ambiguous fondness.
Yeah, there's a chemistry there that I
it's just nice seeing it on screen.
It's just there's so many years like on the top of it that prevents the rest of it from bubbling up.
It'll
but there
bubble
is
up eventually.
It's just beautiful. I am here for it.
I love the crows. I will say I really did not know how they were gonna tie together the crows gang with, you know, the rest of the Grishaverse. But in fairness, not anticipating it, but it's great.
And that's enough of and if Lee's like, you know, like mini interview like at last night's like fan event thing was telling anything, she verbatim basically said she loves how they took like the core character journeys and like stitched them all together. I'm just like, oh my god, they did it.
Yeah,
they totally like it.
I like it because I think I'm not sure if they're going to reveal any more backstory for the crows, because a lot of that happens during the other thing that they do in the books. But we have enough to see that there's a sort of relationship between all three of them right now. I love the crows so much though. I love Severe Kaz. I do. Like I enjoy Severe Kaz a lot. Severe. I actually am enjoying Alina more than I remember enjoying her.
I have never enjoyed Alina at all.
I like her in the book a lot too, but like now I'm really enjoying her, and I'm enjoying Mal, which is also an anomaly
so strange to me. Like
I didn't dislike him. Let me make it clear. I didn't dislike him.
You know, it wasn't even like just like terrible indifference. It was just like, all right, you're there. This is your story. Cool. Let's see what happens next. But here I'm like, why do I care about what happens to you?
Yeah. Oh, also, they started playing up the Zoya and Mal thing a little early, and I think I'm living. I'm thriving.
I think the slow burn on all levels is so masterfully done. I'm actually good. Like if they just keep up this pace, it's so good.
It's so good. And we barely have seen Ben Barnes yet. He doesn't even.
We've seen like the back of his cape and
make
like,
an appearance properly.
Or whatever, so
I'm assuming it's gonna happen in this next episode, which we're about to watch. Very excited about that. But so far, really impressed, I must say. Like, it's a good pilot episode.
I have zero complaints.
Because you know what I think is great too? Like, as someone who hasn't like read the books or anything, it's actually pretty clear because they give you all the details you need to know.
They give you all of the beats, they give you all of the like threads that you need to grab onto.
Then they make it easy for you to understand which characters are sort of related to each other in some way.
So accessible.
They did such a good job with that.
And the accessibility, it doesn't feel contrived. It actually feels lived in. It's almost kind of voyeuristic where you're like, I'm spying on people who have private moments, and I just, you know, it's like they're so close, they don't feel it doesn't feel like an act.
Yeah, exactly, and that's magic. It happens every so often when I'm watching something.
And so few shows have that kind of chemistry between their actors.
Yeah,
and
this show so far, all of them, the crows as a unit,
believable.
Mal and Alina together.
It feels like you're watching season 4. You know what I mean? Like it's not like a new show where we're trying to establish, you know. This is like
no. It's like they've been there and we're just filming them now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this has existed.
So much energy that they bring to this. It's so good.
Anyway, on to episode 2.
That's right. Here we go.
All right, episode 2 thoughts. First of all, Jesper Fahey can get it. He's great. My running joke now is that he's the third wheel.
He's the 100% the third wheel
in this current iteration of the crows.
He's the third wheel of the little crow tricycle.
And the funnier part to me is like there's an entire segment in the second episode where they basically switch off talking to him. So it's like Inez will be talking to him and then she'll disappear and then Kaz will show up and he's like, I need you.
And he's like, what?
He's clearly the most wanted one in the trio.
And he's just rolling with it, right?
And he's just like, we're all friends here.
And what was that line? Something about when you're when your best friend or something.
Yeah, well, he calls them both his friends.
Yeah.
Kaz is specifically his best friend, I think is what he says. Yeah. Though he calls him boss. Also, his sharpshooting in this episode.
The smoking gun.
I love it.
Just great. It's just fun.
Let's stick with the crows. I like the twist of like how they were being manipulated to almost ruin their plan, which happens a lot in the duology as well. Like,
and that's just life in Ketterdom. I mean, it's just
you just have to be smarter
one
or one step
after the other, and one shanking after the other. As well.
I will say it was very fun to watch Inez take off all her knives because she has so many.
It's nice to know she has all of them.
And she's so pretty.
And she's.
I mean, I thought that from the first moment I saw her cast, but like,
Amita is gorgeous and stunning as a human being. As far as human beings go, that's pretty stunning. So it's just brilliant.
And also, I like to call them mom and dad now. So I was like, mom and dad were fighting this episode, but they made up by the end of it. Sort of. I don't know if they really made up though. But what Inaj doesn't know yet is that Kaz basically gave his entire life so that he could take her with him, and I'm just here to like, ooh. I smell a ship.
So many layers on that one moment.
I also like how they're tying it in. So they already tied it into the Grishaverse, right? But now they have another character, a new one, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that would be the character that they tie in. So speaking of the Grishaverse, Ben Barnes has finally made his appearance. Very Darkling.
Very Darkling. Yeah, that's
no, because he has that charismatic
vibe.
Because he's trying to make it sound welcoming and open and everything, but also he literally cut someone in half.
Like he'd just look at him, he's evil. I don't like it. Doesn't take
he's
too
still
long
evil,
to, you know.
but
I was expecting them to play him a little gregarious, but no, he's just severe as well, and that's
he
fine.
doesn't get that way until he spends more time with Alina in the books, I think, because he really is pretty severe. He's kind of detached. Well, spoilers for the book, obviously, but he's kind of detached from humanity because he's been alive for what, centuries at this point.
Suppose.
And then when he meets Alina, who he thinks is like the perfect yin to his yang or whatever, his other half, he starts to soften, and like that's sort of where you see his actual personality shine through. But anyway, so to Alina and Mal, in fairness, like this is
so invested.
This is the most I have ever been invested in Alina and Mal ever.
It's so compelling. And see, I guess it's just different when the storytelling is visual, because you don't have all of
Yeah, because they didn't really say anything. It was just showing
Because the problem, because it's not so much the problem, because what happens when you're reading people's thoughts is that you get to really narrow things down, and blanks are filled in for you.
Alina's thoughts.
And it's only Alina's thoughts. But here, there are clear pictures of Mal and Alina, and you only really truly have what you see, and so your brain fills in different sets of blanks. And I'm just like, why do I care about
I like the thing I particularly like about this episode is there's a cinematography trick that they're using with Alina and Mal where they juxtapose them in the same positions all the time. Where they're basically
whether they're together or where they're apart, it's always the same like visual cues.
And it's so good.
It
hits so hard.
Alina always looking to her left, Mal always looking to his right.
And the episode starts like that, and it ends like that, and it's so good.
So cinematography, it's just such a crazy translation from the book too, and it just goes to show you that you can tell the same story but come up with a different story just based on how you tell it.
This is the interesting thing to me, because I always treat any adaptation as sort of like an Elseworld version, like it's a different version-ish. And I like that they were able to mine the Grishaverse material so well that it makes sense that this is the way the story is being told. It's like, in storytelling tradition, depending on the person who's telling the story and the context they heard it in, the story will change.
Yeah, totally.
And I feel like that's what's happening with this, where it's like, it is still Alina's story, effectively, and the story of the crows, but because we're hearing it or seeing it from someone else's, like, storytelling, and it's different.
And people bringing it to life. I mean, different actors bring different energies to the same roles.
Great.
And this cast is hot damn. This cast is like amazing.
I liked Mal well enough in the books, but I actually really liked this Mal.
And the thing about acting is it's about sincerity, and there is a deep sincerity that everyone has to the parts that they
embodied whoever they were cast as. It's really brilliant. They're really good.
It's just so good. And of course, in the last episode, Alina ruins everyone's day. In this episode, everyone ruins Alina's day. Just every day now is.
Oh my gosh, including the Driskella, which I literally, when they say it, I was like, oh my god, we're getting them so early, because they don't show up. As far as I remember, they're not really, they're like in passing.
Yeah, the Fjerdans are just like, they're there.
Yeah, they're in passing. But now they're there, and they were on screen, and I was like, oh wow. Shit.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
But yeah, it's so far so good. Still on it. There are a few things that I'm waiting for. I think I particularly am enjoying the crow stuff, just because I know the character so well, so I like all the character
How about we're getting canon crows? How's that? How about we're getting crows outside of Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom?
Yeah, it's so much fun.
We haven't had that in a while or ever.
Gosh, I love it so much.
And here we are.
I love it so much. Okay, I'm just waiting for the moment where Kazan and Edge figure out their shit, but that's gonna take a while. And Jasper's just gonna be there watching the entire...
That's gonna happen.
Oh, so in this episode, Jasper actually goes, he tells Kaz, he's like, we should hire someone to do explosives. And knowing what we know, because we've read Six of Crows, I'm like, just wait for it.
I know.
It'll definitely be explosive for you. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Anyway, we shall continue on now. Till the next episode.
Alright then.
Okay, so we finished watching episode 3. Very good episode, but before anything else, Mackie called something early on in the episode, and I thought it was a joke.
First of all, so kind of spoilery.
Kind of. This is like spoilers.
One of the best things about anything actually in the world is Kaz Bricker holding a goat. help me, I have a kid. I mean, it's just help me.
He has it tucked under his arm,
he looks like a disgruntled mobster who's just like, it's like, this is the mark. I mean, it's just he's holding the kid, and he's just my kid.
Okay.
And so I thought
to make you understand why he's holding a goat. They were given a list of things that
they would need to cross the fold.
And a goat is one of them.
And a goat was one of them. And so I thought, what the hell is the goat for? I thought, was it going to be bait? Are they going to throw it out to the whatever? And then in my head, the way Kaz was cradling it, right? Like, kind of almost tenderly. And I'm just like, is that your emotional support goat, Kaz?
I laughed because I was like, this is a great
Because it's ridiculous,
joke.
Right? Because we were expecting that goat to be just like Volker bait. And that was it. Oh no.
Cut to, they're crossing the fold.
And then out of nowhere, Jesper starts freaking the frag out. And the conductor is just like, grab the goat, and in the middle of Jesper having a meltdown, he's like, grab the goat, and Jesper's like, what, do I throw it out? I'm not throwing it out there. No, the goat is for you. And then Alexa and I are like, oh my god, it is an emotional support goat.
And it emotionally supports Jesper through this trying time.
To destroy a bunch of Volcra.
Oh, speaking of Jesper, I like that they hinted. This is something that gets revealed, I think, in Crooked Kingdom. You find out that Jesper is actually part Grisha. Like, he's actually a Grisha. He's a materialki. That's why he's such a good sharpshooter.
Because I guess he manipulates like the steel and the barrels and all of that kind of stuff. And that's fine. It's just so funny.
But it's something you wouldn't know unless you'd read the books. You would just think like, oh, he's a great sharpshooter still. Like the way they frame it. It's not obvious.
And I guess it's because he actually guides the bullets too. I mean, that's sort of
why he never misses.
If he's got that,
unless he wants to.
Right. Unless he's got that. What is it? What is that Brandon Sanderson thing? Where you get to manipulate like metal.
Oh my god, what is it called? Yeah.
He's got that little Mistborn thing going on for him. It's pretty cool.
Mom and Dad also had another discussion in front of
the memorial.
There was like a memorial,
who died.
Yeah. And it was a very serious discussion. And Kaz, being Kaz, is super severe and super like, we have to take care of business first. And Inej is like, all right, I got it, I understand, but also
I know where you live.
Here's the thing: the fact that Inej continues to tell him things when she could just be like, he keeps dismissing it, so why should I keep saying it?
But she keeps opening up to him.
Yeah.
It's like she sees right through him.
And
it's this whole game of I'm the boss and. You know.
What else has happened?
The Alina and Mel thing is being played up very nicely.
We'll come back to that in a second because there's something we have to talk about with Alina. But first, Mal, he has really good friends because his friends talked him out of deserting, basically. And they were like, no, we just have to be the best so that you can get awarded and then you'll see Alina again. Which, to be fair, is probably the better, more legal way to do things.
As opposed to getting, like, hung for treason.
And then you have Ben Barnes as the Darkling explaining a little bit about what being a Grisha is and the small signs. And I was telling Maki that I really appreciate this, and this happens in the book too, where like the magic system is easily explained.
Yeah, it's
true. It does not come from nothing. Yeah. You manipulate your element, whatever it is, it has to exist. Like whatever. Like you cannot just produce fire out of nowhere, even if you're an Inferni.
Yeah.
So it's fast. And Leo was in the episode. Oh my gosh.
First one to hug Alina.
That moment though, I was like,
I'm just like, girl, it's like, is that Lee? And it's like, could I? And I'm like, yeah, it is totally Lee. She's lovely. And beaming like a proud mother.
I mean, who wouldn't? Also, oh my gosh, this is the first time you see the Lives of Saints books. Like the Lives of Saints book in the series. And it looks exactly like the actual copy, which is pretty cool.
I'm 100% sure that was probably like a real copy.
Yeah. The apparat is still as smarmy and cockroachy as ever.
That's true. He's a little gross.
Bagra is as severe as one might expect from someone who has no patience for anyone who's wasting her time.
That's true.
Actually, it reminds me of you a little bit.
Only like
slight, very slight.
If everything good in my life was taken away, that would be totally me.
Basically. Okay, now to get to the... So we met other Grisha. So Genya is in this episode. Oh. Amazing. Love her already. Cannot wait.
I want to be a Taylor.
Nina is in this episode as well, and she's beautiful.
I am 100% love that she's like and I think her accent is Irish. And
she's beautiful.
Like, what a great touch.
And I love that she matches Alina's defiance also. In fact, she's even more obvious about hers because she's just like,
yeah, she's unabashed about it.
Yeah.
Alina's is very subtle with her defiance.
And then who else shows up in this? Oh, Matthias is in this episode as well. He makes a very brief appearance. You don't really get to see too much of him because it's dark and they're on a ship and it's like pouring rain. But I am looking forward to seeing that play out also. But let's talk about, okay, I love that Alina in this episode, like, I was telling Mac it's fascinating because the way Jessie Melee is playing it is exactly how Alina is in the book. She's drawn to the idea of having this power that she never knew she had. And she knows it's important objectively for the country. and as Ben Barnes has now told her, for the Grisha. But she's also still like, this is too much. It's overwhelming. I don't want it. This is not who I am. And she writes to Mal. That's how it's portrayed. Like, she's telling him what her life is like now, and it's my heart can't handle Melina. But we have to shout out the fact that she tried to fight with Zoya. Okay, so she goes to train with Bodkin, like, who is the sort of combat, like, master
dude.
And then, so he tells her, pick an opponent.
Right? So she picks Zoya, because Zoya whispers some crap in her ear.
Zoya's kind of a bitch a little bit, which is how she is in the book, for which you don't find out why until like later on. But anyway, point being, so she picks Zoya. And at first Zoya just keeps putting her on her back, because Zoya's been training since she was like, what, 10?
Yeah.
And then she says something.
Then she says something terrible to Alina.
About Mal.
About Mal. And then she sucker punches her, right? And Zoya, like, sucker
punches her back using
like,
her
air,
Grisha ability as a squaller.
With her squaller stuff.
Knocks her back so hard.
And here's why it sort of took a turn for to the hilarious for me. I mean, it's one thing, I should be more upset that Zoya, like, used her powers on Alina. But no, smacked her so hard she saw the stag.
I'm sorry, it was really
and it was so abrupt too, and I'm just like, it's like, boo! And then she flies off screen, and then suddenly, stag. And I'm pretty sure that's not what they meant. I'm sure that was just their way of going, every like unconscious moment she sees.
Yeah, especially now that she's starting to tap into her powers. Yeah, they're trying to emphasize that it's becoming a more frequent thing.
Yeah, like calls to like, blah blah blah. We know the lore. It's just the timing. Though. It's like boom, stab.
I don't think it was meant to be funny at all, but like it is funny.
It's just a comedic time, and it's probably just my brain. Like, and I infect her a little bit with that kind of humor. It's just because she was fine. I was the only one who was like.
I started laughing. I will say I'm not sure if this is because we both read it and we know sort of the lore in it. It's been a while since I read it though, but like I appreciate how they're laying out the basics of the world in a way that feels very organic. Because now the next thing that they've given us, so we learned the setting, the characters, and the basic like setup in episode 1. In episode 2, we kind of get more of an idea of what it means to be Grisha.
Yeah.
And Mal and Alina's relationship, the Crow's relationship, all that. In episode 3, the thing we're learning about is the politics of the Little Palace, right? And then we also start learning about the amplifiers. And they do it in such a way where it's just like, it just makes sense. It's
such an organic, incremental, non-info dumpy way of
this is the non-info
setting
dumpy
up.
Way, yeah.
It's almost a masterclass in setup, lore-wise. Like, it's a lore setup.
Yeah, but it's so smart. Like, I just find it so interesting because, like,
I just said
sometimes television shows can also do that, and anime definitely does that, where it's like one episode and
anime puts like a caption, and you're like, anime will put like a chart on TV, and take you to school for like 40 seconds,
and then you're done.
And then that's it. Like,
meanwhile, like, I don't know, there's just
out of nowhere, it's like, let's establish this now. With the show.
They're just doing a really good job establishing everything you need to know.
Of course, the advantage that they have, which again, some anime don't take advantage of this, is that Alina is learning all of these things as we're learning it. So that's a very useful device.
Yes.
And if employed properly, your character learning about what she needs to learn is a perfect setup for your audience to learn.
You just have to do it in a way that, I don't know, they're just doing a great job with that. We also saw,
I wish I knew how
of the Grisha, we've seen, I don't remember if it's 2 or 3 where we met Fyodor and I think Sergei, but in this episode we actually meet Nadia and Marie, who are 2 Grisha.
Lovely.
Who are, they're Etherealki. Nadia, in particular, is one I have a soft spot for reasons that I will not disclose right now, because it's definitely spoilery for something.
But it's really just up and down for Alina. A lot of downs.
Mostly, well, can I just say my favorite line in this one is where she's like, there's a difference between Cardinal North and True North. And her True North, it leads her home. And
True North is where you loved and where you're...
And I'm just like, okay, Mel's your True North, Christ.
All right.
But yeah, I agree.
I'm in.
I agree with you. There's a lot of ups and downs for... It's not
mostly
like...
downs,
okay, it's funny because, like, I think it was smart of them to actually juxtapose the Six of Crows story and Alina's story. Because with the Crows, it's really just, like, ruse after shenanigan after ruse and chaotic
and whether we all know it or not, it's an immediate palate cleanser for both.
Yes, exactly.
Like, I think it would be...
They're
even
doing
now,
a good job switching, actually.
Exactly.
Switching around.
Like, I think now, if I was just looking at just the Crow's journey, there's only so much adrenaline
it would have
you
to
can
be
take.
it would have to be a movie versus a series.
Yeah, there's only so much adrenaline you can take. And with Alina, there's
it's the
only
same
so much
too.
tedium.
It would have to be a series
Because Alina is in a weird limbo phase where she's not quite the thing, and it's more about her
She's
journey.
not yet ready to be an actual sun summoner and try to, like...
So I think that's
do
so
what she needs
bloody,
to.
like, it's such a masterclass in
So it's smart, like...
effective storytelling. I mean, the story is already great, but the
Yeah.
method, it's my brain is just like, I am learning about new things,
me
not
too.
how to do new things. I want to learn that, but I'm learning that, oh my god, you can do it that way. That's amazing.
It's really good. Yeah, so we're gonna move on now to episode 4, where I was telling Maki, it's like, I joke a lot that I have a librarian in my head and it's just disorganized in there. I feel like the librarian has been screaming since episode 1 and hasn't stopped.
Screaming since the interviews last night.
I know.
Get real.
So we're gonna continue on. I am curious to see how much more of Nina's story we're actually gonna get, because I wasn't sure.
It's gonna be the escape. I mean, there's no way they're just gonna leave her in the hull of the boat and then just... No.
Yeah, that would suck, first of all.
So
and you know
this
who
is how-
I am looking forward to meeting? I don't remember if he's been cast already or if he's gonna be in it. I'm looking forward to meeting David.
Ooh.
Because I love David. But we'll report on that later. Meanwhile, we got an emotional support goat to catch up with. Goodbye. Okay, rude.
I am
The end of
pleased.
episode
I'm
4
so
is like
pleased.
making me tear. Okay, because I am one of those people who is like, Malin and Adu belong together, right? But like this adaptation is particularly convincing me of this, and then like the ending of episode 4 just made me tear up. Like, I legit feel that.
Like, I'm so glad I haven't read the books, like, leading up to this thing, even if I said I would. Because that distances me from my opinions about Mal and Alina in the book. Which I remember to be, I couldn't care less.
I mean, I was fine. Like, they weren't a big deal for me in the book.
But this hands me personally as a viewer everything
still
I
teary.
want. It's so good.
I'm still like,
and it's so good.
I'm like, wow, I felt that in my bones.
And I'm like, you know, and it's the whole thing, right? Where, you know, letters.
It's perfect.
whatever,
The
not being said,
juxtaposition of it, the parallels.
The parallelism,
of
yeah.
like the she
Bonds
says
being
it first,
severed, and then he sort of says it next, and they're both figuring out their feelings for each other, but terrible things are happening in and around that context.
Yes.
I mean, love is pain, children. That is just how it is in YA world.
Okay,
it's delicious.
so
I love
Alina is clearly struggling in this one. There's not much to say though, because she's still in training mode, basically.
Yeah, but then she cuts all of her ties to the
yeah,
past,
the
thinking
big
that Mal
decision
has
is that,
abandoned her.
They both think they've.
Yeah, they both think the others sort of
Well, they
abandoned
both
each
are
other.
going through some form of abandonment.
Which
right
if
now.
they're gonna play up the weirdness that happened in the book between them, totally makes sense now, because you know, we live in a time where you know, where communication is the best it's ever been, and people still don't understand each other. What more at a time when letters
are like
the
the
only
way,
way that you can get, and if you can't even write a simple freaking letter, so that their letters are being tampered with, nobody thinks that, which to me I think is the only hole in that plot.
Well, we're still mostly hearing about those letters from their perspectives. They're grunts. They don't know.
Exactly.
They would never know.
Exactly.
They would
my
just
point.
trust in the system.
Exactly, they would just trust this. Who could possibly want to sabotage this, right?
I mean, there's also like
the
fact
world
that they
can't
did
be that terrible. Well, it is, kids. That's why we have a story. So.
And then to round out that trio, the Darkling has a few moments of like vulnerability. And the thing is, if I hadn't read the books, I might have believed it more. But because
that's really how they're playing him, because there's a sympathy to
be
the
fair,
Darkling.
he has it in the series, in the book series. I was telling Maki, what I remember is that the Darkling starts to get more vulnerable and feel more human the longer he hangs out with Alina.
Because I guess the light sort of
she brings it out of him, basically.
brings it out of him. So
And
that made sense.
This episode is probably the most Darkling and Alina content you will get, because they go on a
so far
outing. It looks like a date. And they recount the story of the Black Heretic, and then he kind of promises that he's going to be by her side, and then he has a moment of vulnerability at night because the war seems to be on the losing side for them.
Exactly.
But here's the thing, it's like all of this is like, if you look at it, it could fall either way. He could be really being vulnerable, and that could be true. There's a sincerity to that, because who wouldn't want someone who could recognize them
and understand
and have that same level of like
understanding, like
but on the other hand, the level of just thinking that he's probably manipulating her so the power comes faster.
And that's the thing. That's the only. But we know that in hindsight from the books.
Exactly.
If you haven't read the books, it would really look like you're like this is a guy that's sort of like revealing a tender side, which is rife for Alina to
Still,
respond to.
still enjoying Nadia and Marie, by the way, and their side commentary. It's kind of great.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Okay, so to the crows.
Speaking of side, yes.
To the crows. Can I just say, we got a tiny mini heist, and even though it's child's play, especially if you read their duology and you know what they're capable of, it's so fun.
Candy from a baby.
It was still so much fun to watch it happen, like to play out in real time. It was great. My favorite thing that happened to the crows, though, is that they find another alternative way to get into the little palace, right? And it's a bit similar to what they choose to do for the ice court.
For the ice court, yeah.
Here's the thing. Inej on the silks. Great, beautiful, wonderful, she's perfect. But my thing is just the friendship between her and Jesper. The fact that she trusts him not to miss when he's shooting
from
backwards.
Using a not even a mirror, it's like a shiny tray.
To hit a card she's holding in her mouth. I'm just like...
And he shoots it clean off.
Also, Jesper appreciation moment. He freaking thanks the goat. And like has an entire goodbye speech to the goat and leaves the goat a bullet. It's great.
So
it's great.
Attached.
It's beautiful. It's the best thing I've seen in a while.
And in my head, I'm like, you know, they're gonna cook that goat for like dinner, right? Like that's
like the next time he comes back, it's gone.
It's like it's mutton. Like that's what that goat's gonna end up. Like
but
they're
my
not gonna keep it as a pet.
the show is so
not in this economy.
Oh, Nina and Matthias. Can't forget Nina and Matthias.
Yeah.
Nina and Matthias had a big moment where they sort of discuss things and they're which happens in the book.
In the books. It's the flashback.
She challenges him and asks him, you know, to reevaluate things, and he's kind of like, I am Drusilla, and
he's
whatever.
kind of a pure zealot, right? Like he's fed the propaganda and he believes it, unlike the other hypocrites who sort of like tend to gravitate towards these fascist like things.
He tends to believe that they really will be given a fair trial, and
because he believes in the crap that's fed to them.
And I mean, he also knows that a lot of Grisha have killed a lot of Fjerdans, but obviously it's because also a lot of Fjerdans have killed a lot of Grisha, so it's like a whole cycle thing.
And so it's a great moment where somebody who grew up in...
the tension between those two actors, really good also.
Really
like they have the same sort of chemistry you kind of see with Mal and Alina in the adaptation, and also between Kaz and Inej, who are basically still mom and dad.
And here's the thing, right? I wish I had more heart space to enjoy all of them. I'm just like, this is like so much already. Like there's so much going on that I almost have no room for Nina and Matthias.
Can I just say two other crow things that just popped into my head? First of all, Inej like taking her knives and giving them to Kaz. One. Second, my favorite random thing that happens is Jesper saying something and they both go at the exact same time. Shut up, Jesper.
Shut up, Jess.
And I'm like, oh, mom and dad.
No. And here's the fun part. Like when they finally get bamboozled into they lost their star silk person, and then both Kaz and Jesper just kind of look.
They just look over at her.
At Inej, and Inej just looks back at them like, these sons of fine.
But yeah, it's really good so far, and I think they're doing a really great job telling the story. Like, it's going in the general same direction. They're adding a few things to it, but wait. Like it's oh my gosh,
we're halfway through now, right?
Yeah, we're literally at the halfway point.
This is the halfway mark.
Wow, a lot has happened in just 4 episodes.
And it doesn't
feel
full.
It doesn't even feel too long either.
No,
just feels like
right enough. Like right.
Yeah, and it cuts at the perfect moments. I have to say, I appreciate whoever decided where each episode would end, because so far every ending has been like.
I almost feel like every capable writer who has the gift for it, like Lee apparently does, should executive produce like their own like screen adaptations, because in the same way that wasn't the Hunger Games writer Suzanne Collins, was it?
Suzanne Collins.
Yeah,
yes.
Didn't she also sort of like write the script for?
That
explains why the beats in the Hunger Games movies were sort of like a little like very faithful to the books. So yeah,
a lot of raving over here, clearly, because we're quite enjoying it. Yeah. So on to the next one.
Totally worth the migraine.
On to the next one.
All right, here we go.
So we finished episode 5, and before we get to like the ending, because that's probably the best part.
I think we have to redefine the meaning of shenanigans.
Okay, but first, okay. So in this episode, Mal finally makes it to the little palace, to Oz-Alta, and he's obviously looking to bargain the fact that he saw the stag, so that he can see Alina, because someone has not given up hope, despite the fact he has also not received any letters. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Poor Mal.
Shady.
Poor Mal has to defend himself, which he does brilliantly. But moving on, let's talk about Alina, who has kind of gotten swept up in the
despair of it all.
She's despairing because she thinks she's been abandoned by the one person who has always been... See, here's the thing though. I'm sure they had to be separated for their army training because they were trained in 2 different units. So I'm like, I guess they got the letters. I guess
No,
that's
no,
what
yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah. It feels like they did get the,
And I
the
guess
correspondence
the temptation
going.
is also hard to resist because like
They
she
were
has
pen
this
pals.
she has this amazing power now, and like people really are starting to embrace her, and she's never had that before outside of Mal.
Yeah, and more importantly, like the pressure of her having to want to use her powers, and the one thing holding her back is Mal. Meaning she doesn't want to be in any way.
She doesn't
form, or
want to
fashion.
be different from him.
And since those feelings are complicated and tangled up to begin with, it makes total sense for her to sort of like lose her mind.
Okay, can I just...
Psychologically speaking.
So, let's just for a moment, like, Darkling and Alina fans are gonna have a field day with this episode.
Congratulations,
this
guys.
is
You have your
this is your
moment.
episode.
Yeah,
this is it. This is it. Because
That was
Alina
real. That
is
was
so
some real
swept
chemistry.
up. Yeah,
she,
Alina is so swept up.
wanted to jump his bones.
She can't not be attracted to someone who is also sort of reflecting her own feelings back at her, which is the scary part because you can never tell really, even in the books, if it's a real thing or if it will matter to him as much as it does to her to recognize someone else being the same as him.
Exactly. Either way, the shared histories and the sincerity about the shared histories are enough of
it
a
makes
driving
sense,
point.
and this attraction makes sense. Like, it's an attraction, it's not a relationship. Sorry. Hate to burst your bubble.
We don't know who we're talking to when we say that. But.
Yeah, but hate to burst your bubble. It's an attraction hour. But what I like about the way they wrote the Darkling's character is that it immediately is cut off right at the start because you find out he really is that manipulative and he's been around the block, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they didn't waste time letting viewers believe it for too long, like that he was just this vulnerable person who's blah blah blah.
But it was a little abrupt though.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
just like a sudden,
of all the world building, story building stuff, this is actually the episode where I feel like that part was weak a little bit. Like, it didn't matter so much because obviously I already knew that Bagra was his mom and all of this crazy history.
Cool.
But like, if it's for someone who has never heard of the story, this is the most abrupt. Everything else has been so seamless, and this is like the one thing.
I'm not even mad though.
Where it's just, sorry, I love Bagra, but like
it's nice to know it's not perfect. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I think it's fine. Like, it wasn't too bad either, but it was the most abrupt it's been so far. However, let's talk about the crows, because that is probably the best part of this entire thing. Here's the thing about the crows. Okay, I love that this season has nothing to do with their books. Nothing whatsoever. But we still get the same sort of like
the core.
They're doing heists.
Who and what they are.
They're doing heists.
So perfectly.
They're manipulating the game. Like,
they're making their own. Like, when the game doesn't work for them, they'll make a new game.
There's a plan within a plan within a plan within a plan. Basically, is what happens to them. And like Kaz, it's so funny because they captured the spirit of Kaz's character so well. Where he tells you there's a plan. And then there's always a backup plan, but then there's actually a hidden plan within the plan. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's great.
This is something that is characteristic of Kaz in both of the books in the duology, and it's so fun to watch it.
It's all very Nick Fury, very nice.
Yeah, like, it's so fun to watch it happen, and then like to get the explanation for it at the end. That being said, Inej, on the other hand, the fact that she doesn't want to kill anyone on her behalf, but immediately just kills that dude because Kaz is threatened.
And I want to say to protect is not necessarily to kill, though killing may happen in the act of protection. I mean, there's a lot of moral philosophy involved in that. But
I'm just on this K'ned ship. I have been for like years, so, you know, it's just nice to get some fuel there.
It's gorgeous. It's just so yummy. It's mom and dad, basically.
Yeah.
Like, Alexa, I get mom and dad vibes from them because they're in charge. They know what's going on.
Let's talk about their wayward child. Their wayward child, Jesper. At the beginning of this episode, it's like he's not really taking anything seriously, right?
No, not at all.
And Ned sort of calls him out in it, and he actually is taking it seriously. He just has the
propensity to be very, very, very distracted, which in my head I'm like, he's an idiot, you can't rely on him. But on the other hand, I was
telling Mike, I'm like,
I think
they always give him the tasks where like he will have time to sort of F around, you know, and do things like gamble or I don't know,
and then
have
I
a tumble.
realized,
What did I call it? Shagging in the stables.
Shagging in the stables. And then I realized I think they built that into the plan.
I think Kaz is just
it's like Kaz just knows, okay, if there's a window that has to elapse before Jesper decides to focus.
And here's the thing, Jesper does accomplish whatever he needs to. Maybe not in the way that we would all hope would be the most convenient, but funnily enough, this episode is pure dumb luck where he's like smug as hell because he's like, oh well, I got to. Because at the end of the episode, after Alina is told about the Darkling's real past and everything,
she's told to be spirited away to some Grisha that are they're gonna help her.
but she decides she's gonna do her own thing.
Not. Nobody tells her what to do, so she decides to fuck around, do anything, and then out of nowhere,
and it's so perfect.
I thought she was gonna boost their ride.
I thought she was gonna take the horse. Yeah,
exactly. But she ends up hiding in the getaway car
that the crows had to take her away.
And then friggin' Jesper, right?
Sees it.
Just like, he's like, what the? And then she just hides, and he just laughs, and I'm laughing right there with him.
So Kaz
and then Kaz and Edge limp on over to him, and he's
they're
like,
we lost the mark, blah blah blah.
And all Jesper's doing is, did we? Yeah, well,
Jesper's like I am when we're playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's like, did we though? Did we really?
Did we really? Like we totally lost her. We don't know where she is.
I really like the part where he's like, ask me.
Just ask. Just ask.
Just ask.
And then he's like, all right, do we have eyes on the target? And he just smiles and just drives off with Alina in the trunk.
It's so good. I'm just like, I am ready. I don't know what's gonna happen anymore, because like this does not happen obviously in the books. Like, I don't remember. Maybe she does stow away and I just don't remember. But like,
there's no frickin' way.
But like, it's just so, I don't know.
Not really.
But whatever the case, even if she did stow away, whether or not she did, it wasn't the crows. And that's what makes this so much funnier.
Oh, you know what? And Stephen and Mel, who have been.
I kind of want them to read it, because there's a context there. That's
but interestingly enough, I feel like they don't have to.
No, they don't.
Because
if that was a question that you had, read at least Shadow and Bone, like the first book.
But I feel like.
But a Six of Crows, I think you're okay.
Because you'll come into Six of Crows with this knowledge of who they are at the core. It's probably going to have different, obviously, continuity issues because they, like,
I don't know.
Maybe not.
I don't know.
Maybe not.
I don't know yet.
The only thing that we're sure of is sort of like Alina's timeline, but we know what the hell the crows were doing and where they went.
Yeah, there was no word really of what the crows were up to while all that was going down. So yeah, it was fun. This is probably my least favorite of the episodes we watched so far, I think.
And yet it had some of the best moments.
Yeah, it had some. Jesper's moment though is just my favorite already. The ending is just, it's too good.
That was to me the best, like my favorite ending so far. Like that to me, that was the best ending of all the episodes thus far. Hopefully, I'll feel the same way on the season finale.
We'll find out. I think for me, it's partly because I've never been a big fan of Alina and the Darkling as a pair. Even in the books, I was kind of like, I get it, but also like, why though? And like in the show, I get it because they do have chemistry. Ben Barnes and Jessie Maley have great chemistry on the show, and you can totally see why it would have happened. They kiss twice in this episode. Okay, spoilers already.
And she kind of jumps his bones.
And she's the one who does it, which is kind of like, good for you, girl.
And he's like the pinnacle of consent. He's like, are you sure? And I'm like, ugh, whatever.
But like
Darkling fans, you're
and Alina
welcome.
fans,
I guess
have your food.
If that's what you like, go for it. It's like we don't begrudge, like you love who you love. You know
I think, did we get a glimpse of Nina and Matthias? We did. I think they're going to have the shipwreck soon because they're in the middle of the storm. Yeah, right.
We'll see that happen.
So barely anything from Nina and Matthias at this point, but like, I don't know. There's only 3 episodes left. I don't know, and I feel like this second half is the part that everyone who has been reacting to, that shared their reactions with me. This is the part of the season where they're all like, what the heck is going on?
Oh, this is great.
And I'm like, I'm right there with you now after. I'm sorry, Smug Jesper is my favorite Jesper though. He's just like.
But that's like him most of the time.
He's hella lucky all the time. I mean, I feel like even in the Crows books, he does have a lot of moments where he just, like, it's literally the skin of his teeth and he's fine.
Got that big domino energy. Yeah, that works.
I will give full credit to Kit Young for being just amazing. His portrayal of Jesper is like spot on.
Spot the hell on, my god.
Like it's
100% Jesper.
It's this perfect combination of like, he can be ruthless, but he's mostly just roguish.
Extremely.
And
roguish.
It's great. I hope he gets to visit his emotional support group again.
Which we believe is going to be Mutton.
Okay, anyway, back to the show. Okay, so we just finished watching episode 6. It was a really good episode. We're back on track with the whole like things getting revealed in a way that makes sense and connections being made in a way that makes sense. But yeah, Maki has a joke for y'all.
No, it's not so much a joke. It is a meme. If you guys know all of those in Soviet Russia memes, it's reverse the thing. I mean, it's a joke on the internet and it's been around for a while. It's been retired, I think. But probably. At one point in time, it reminded me of that because Alexa was like, oh my god, she's in the woods now, and then she's gonna find the tracker. And I'm like, this is Revka. Tracker finds you. The meme just created itself.
And I cackled.
And that
because,
was,
you know, that's just
it's just
my
funny.
sense of humor.
It's rap, guys, rap.
Okay, so Stowaway Alina has escaped the crows. She blinded Kaz and Jasper. Did not blind Inej, but Inej let her go because Inej has a lot of faith in that, and she truly believes that Alina is the real thing.
She almost curtsied, ma'am.
I know. And so Alina is alone at first, but obviously finds Mal, and they're back together, and it's great. The reunion is one of my favorite, most heartwarming things in the entire universe.
Pretty much.
And the one comment I will make about they actually start addressing like certain things. Like I wasn't sure if Alina would ever bring up the fact that she got close to the Darkling while she was in the palace, but then she slips and uses his real name. And then she starts trying to explain it to Mal, but then Mal says that she doesn't have to tell him anything. And the truth is, that's the correct response, because technically, aside from them being friends and like really bonded, they weren't romantically together. Like no one said anything, no one made any promises, so no one did anything wrong.
You heard a no harm, no foul. Get ready for no labels, no foul.
Yeah. But it's great having them back together, and now they're off to go after more of a stag. So
and what's interesting about this episode is what we've noticed has been the writing trick of the year for this was a lot of the juxtaposition. That's really sort of like the strength of this entire series.
It's interesting because it's relationship juxtaposition. And it's also like story juxtaposition.
Journey, power. So knowing that this is a pattern now, we come in and Nina and Matthias are like shacking up in like that little sort of like halfway house. And then we've got Alina and what's his face? Mal finally sort of. I was like, oh, is that what we're juxtaposing?
Okay.
Now? Is this what we're...
Alina and Mal have a really great scene though. They're in a sort of overhang cave type thing, and then Alina basically tells Mal that she sees that he's afraid of her, and it's this whole conversation, and he says he's not afraid of her power, he's not afraid of her, and then he says sorry, but that he hadn't seen her before, but now he sees her, and I just like
died, just dead, just completely, just gone. And the Nina and Matthias scenes.
Oh my god, Nina, they're beautiful. Their chemistry is so good.
The only reason I find them even more devastating than the Alina and Mal scenes is because
you know what happens. You know what happens.
It is just terrible. I'm just there.
It's so fun because like the rigidity of
right
Matthias at the beginning, the actor captures it very well, and like the moment where the ice finally breaks for them, it's so adorable.
Quite literally.
I just love them. Like they had their little Titanic moment. They also had like the ice breaking. Like it's a lot of things. Yeah. I just love their dynamic so much, and these two actors have captured it pretty perfectly.
I love them so much.
Also, they're literally the scenario they're in where they shack up. It's basically a fanfic writer's dream. There's only one bed.
What's interesting is that Alexa didn't even start with
stay together.
Alexa didn't even start with there's only one bed. She actually started with, oh my god, they're forced to undress
and
there's
be
only
close
one
together for warmth.
And they have to be close together for one. And you think you said something like there's only one house or something.
Yeah, and you were like, there's only one bed.
And I'm like, but there's only one bed, and that's a trope. That sent Alexa cackling.
I love it.
The only one bed trope is time honored. I hear.
And then in this one, they sort of make it clear that Nina is part of the Darkling's army of people that he trusts because he sends someone after her. But we also get to see, and this is actually not a thing that's confirmed in the book. Zoya is the Darkling's favorite in the book, but they never are confirmed to be in a romantic relationship. Like Zoya fancies herself in love with him.
I still wouldn't consider it romantic.
Well, yeah, but like they have more of a physical relationship than is ever mentioned in the book. And I'm wondering if that's going to be the switch and bait they do, where instead of her and Mal ever being, because she and Mal kind of have some sort of thing in book 2 technically, but they'd have to do a really, really good job convincing me that would ever happen in the show, because they've started putting those two characters on a different sort of path.
No, for sure.
So I don't know that I would believe it if it happened at this point.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like anything here has been forced, with the exception of the one thing from the last episode.
Yeah, but this episode was back to like, okay, you know what else is very funny in this episode? Oh, not funny. Let's start with the serious stuff. The crows facing off against Grisha. Wow, did not anticipate that. Like,
so Jesper almost being,
okay, like, but Jesper's
almost being like figured for Grisha
oh my
at one
gosh.
point in time. And then Inej, her second kill, probably, which
is probably
devastating. But she had no choice. Like, she's like,
and then
in that case.
Kaz and the Darkling.
Kaz versus the Darkling was a face-off.
And the best part was he didn't lie at all. The entire time. He's like, we technically didn't take her. They didn't. She stowed away. And they don't know where she is because she left them. So
bait and switch. So it
works so well for the crows, really.
Insane. I don't even know how he got away.
It's Kaz.
Amazing.
What was I going to say? On a less serious note about the crows, the audacity of that trio to freaking take the Darkling's carriage. The audacity. The actual, absolute effing audacity. The funnier part to me is that, well, not funny, poor David is just innocently sitting in there reading a book.
Which suspiciously looks like Shadow and Bone.
Yes, it really does.
The old edition with like the antlers on the side.
Yeah, it really looks like an edition of Shadow and Bone.
But written in Ravgan. And it looks, and the shape, actually the shape of the Ravgan verse looks kind of like Shadow and Bone too. And so I'm just like, that is
it's so funny though, because like the first thing he does when he sees Jesper, he doesn't reach for a weapon, he just throws the book.
At him. And then Jesper's like, who the hell throws a book at anybody?
But poor David got knocked out. Not killed, but knocked out.
And David is the Christopher Lightwood of that entire
unfortunately, we're at the part where David doesn't really realize that he's being used for his abilities as a fabricator. He's just content that he gets all these books, he gets to do experiments, he gets to learn things.
And he gets to test the little new things that he does.
So it's gonna get interesting, because now everyone is positioned to accept the crows, obviously. The crows are probably just gonna head out and head home. But like everyone else is positioned to go after Morozova's stag. And it's gonna be... So the tracker is tracking the stag, and David, because of some trick, is now able to sort of track Alina if they're close enough.
That Jenya had given her.
So this should be a very interesting turn of events on to episode 7.
Which Lee says there's a lot of stag in that episode. So
yeah, I would not be surprised.
See where we go from there.
All right. So I'm gonna complain a little because our internet is out and it literally outed itself somewhere in the middle, like in part way through episode 7, so I'm a little upset. But it does give me enough time to give you a little like rundown of some of the thoughts that are like going through my mind. So first we're gonna talk about the Darkling, which I just explained to Maki, and I was talking to my friend Danica about this too. I'm like, I am not personally into the Darkling for myself, but I find him to be a really compelling character. In both the book series and the TV show, although I think I'm not sure yet if I prefer the TV show or the book, whatever. In both, we're actually given a look at his history a little bit. We get to see moments in his past.
Yeah,
and it sort of shows you a different side to who he is. It's him before he became this ruthless, sort of powerful Darkling that he is now, this powerful general that he is. Kind of gives you the origin of that. And I was telling both Maggie and Danica, like, I think it's fascinating because at the end of the day, he's technically just a person who had a goal, and he was naive enough to believe that it would be simple for them to get that, and all he really wants is that Grisha be treated, you know, fairly, equally, and he doesn't get that. Grisha are often used or abused, especially at the time that the current episode is showing us. And I think it's interesting just because to see how his use of power and darkness, the darker parts of it, warps him, and lots of losses that he has to endure, lots of people he cared about that he has to endure, also causes him to like sort of shut down and shut off because it's too painful and it hurts. And it just makes him such a compelling villain because on the one hand you get it, like you understand like that is a painful and hurtful thing.
Yeah, and his response to it sort of, I guess, villainizes him.
Yes.
In that sense.
I mean, some of his choices still questionable. And I was telling Maki that I appreciate, as far as I can recall, in the trilogy, they never really it's not a justification for him making terrible choices. It's not. It's just an explanation for how we got to the point where he starts making terrible choices. And I was telling him, I didn't realize this until today, there's a poignancy to the way that he finds himself at the crossroads of another choice because of Alina, and meeting Alina, who again is sort of like the opposite for him. Like, she's the sun summoner and he's the shadow summoner, so they're like polar opposites, right? And she is someone that he sees himself reflected in because they're in the same position. They're like one of a kind. They never really had a place to belong. People kind of want to use them because they're so powerful. And it sort of gives him back a tiny bit of the humanity that he thought was probably gone forever. Yeah. Everyone thought was probably gone forever, really. So it gives him another choice. And the thing is, having read the series, we all know what he chooses. And that's on him, really, at the end of the day. But it is really heartbreaking to think about. It's such an interesting villain story. The second thing, unless you had some thoughts on the Darkling.
I don't know, just like pontificating on like what makes a hero and makes a villain, right? And how...
I like that it's all very gray.
Yeah, because you know, like, one would think that he had no chance to choose otherwise because of hundreds of years of just being a certain way.
The weight of that is so heavy.
You don't just get rid of that kind of thing.
No, it's not as it, like, snap your fingers.
And redemption doesn't maybe come as easily as we would think, or like...
The other thing I want to talk about, which I think Maki will appreciate, is I was going to say, like, adapting a fantasy story into a different medium, specifically film or TV. Sometimes the fantasy setting itself in the world can feel a little generic. Like, there are, like, hallmarks that we're all used to. But for me, like, the Grishaverse is so well established that it feels like a real place. It's sort of like Game of Thrones, where, like, all of the lands, they have their own character, they have their own...
There's a groundedness to it. Like, it's
like it really exists, like Maki was saying earlier.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I admire so much the fact that this was established in these books. Like, this world existed, these cultures existed, these powers existed, and they just took what was established and ran with
That's
it.
Great.
And it comes to life so beautifully because it really exists.
Yeah,
you know, like
the cultures, the people, the beliefs. I mean, and I guess it's because they have all of the hallmarks of what happens in real life. People have faith. People have no faith. People have, you know,
there's prejudices there,
that exist, course. And all of it is too familiar. But at the same time, it's not anything we've ever seen or known. So
yeah, and it's fascinating. Like, I was just thinking about this in the last few minutes. I was like, it's so nice to feel like I'm really transported somewhere.
Yeah, rather than, oh, we're visitors
and
this is a made-up world. Like, no, this is like, it feels like...
And I think that's why the books also work really well, because it's the same thing. You kind of feel like you really are reading the story of this world that exists elsewhere.
There's a gravity.
It's a very rare gift, I guess, and I'm just like, all praise to Lee Bardugo, obviously, for writing this series, this world, this story, and all praise to the showrunners for adapting it, because so far, it's so good. Okay, let's all wish that the internet comes back sooner rather than later. Okay, so we watched episode 7. There were a lot of interruptions because of the freaking internet, and my theory is that the internet hates the Darkling because it always seemed to happen right after or right when the Darkling was saying something important.
We made it.
So this is one of the most pivotal episodes because they do find the stag. They do take it down.
Lots of stag.
There is lots of stag, like Lee Bardugo said there would be.
A staggering amount of stag, one might even say.
So they finally get the stag and everything, and Alina is forced into bearing the antlers as an amplifier, and not by choice, and it's not even under her own control because...
Pretty freaky, too.
Yeah,
it's poking because out of her collarbones.
Yeah, I actually never pictured the antlers looking like that, because in my mind, it always was just like a very pale bone necklace that was kind of fused on top of her. Like, you could see the whole thing. But the way it is on the show, it actually makes it thematically makes more sense because an amplifier requires sacrifice.
Yep.
And it requires a death. And in a way, you're taking that painful thing from someone else and grafting onto yourself.
It's terrible.
It's so terrible. Okay, we'll get to Mal in a second, because I don't really have much to say about Mal except that, you know, he gets very severely injured, he gets healed, because, you know, it's all part of the promise that the Darkling makes Alina. The Darkling and Alina, however, they finally have their big, like, the moment where all the secrets are starting to get stripped away. And the thing is, like we were talking about earlier about him being a villain, like, he finally says the iconic line, "Fine, make me your villain," which I'm sure all the Darkling fans are like, oh my god!
Which, to this day, I'm like, go love who you love, but
yeah.
I will not claim to understand why.
What I really appreciate about how they orchestrated Alina and the Darkling's relationship on the show is that it's early on very obvious that Alina is calling him out, not because she hates him specifically, like there was a chance for something. There was a seed.
And she calls it out.
Yeah, she was like, we could have been something. This could have been something. But the thing is,
you could have chosen me to you could have made me your equal, but instead you made me this.
Because he kept saying, and this is fun, like this is a fun thing. Like if you've read the books, you're familiar, but if you haven't, the Darkling keeps saying that we'll do it together.
It's for
us.
We'll do it together.
We'll do it together. It's for us. But and at the end of the day, he doesn't give her the choice to do it with him.
And it's super gaslighty and it's super toxic. And I think that was Lee's point. So I understand Darkling's sympathizers where they're like, he could have been a good man.
No, and he could have, but he made a choice.
But for people to do that without the self-awareness of, but he's kind of not though. That's what I don't understand.
He's a lying liar who lies.
Like I will say he was one of the best villains I've ever sort of
it's so smart.
But
it's so well done.
And like I said, love who you love. It's just it's a little toxic.
Not my type.
And by a little, I mean a whole lot.
Yeah, and I love that they give Alina the chance to confront him about that and to specifically say that. She's like, you could have made me your equal. And
we could have done this.
this.
It's like we want the same thing. It's just apparently we sort of don't. Apparently, and you didn't give me a choice.
And so now it's super clear. Unlike in the books, it's very clear that there is a power dynamic shift where the Darkling holds most of the power because he takes away her agency in using her Grisha abilities, and he basically makes her subject to him versus being by his side. There's a difference there, and he doesn't seem to realize this.
And it tips the balance of Alina's resolve as well, fully. Like, he could have stayed ambiguous and like sympathetic, but his strong arming of choices just basically, you know, it's not gonna work.
Okay, and then there's Mal. The only thing that I really want to mention about Mal is that the emotional support goat makes another appearance. Did not think it would ever come back, but apparently that bullet was actually significant because Mal uses it to escape, and it is brilliant. Whoever decided to write the emotional support goat into this plot.
Deus ex machina.
Deus ex goat.
Goatus ex machina.
It's great though. It's great. I absolutely love it. 10 out of 10. Would recommend.
What is goat in Latin? Anyway, I'll find out.
And to the crows, back to their usual shenanigans, as usual.
Idiot, I swear to God, I love them so much.
But Kaz telling Inej that the only things he relies on, trusts, is himself, and her, and then Jesper.
Just like it's like a throwaway, but it's not true. It's not a throwaway. Jesper is really somebody he trusts.
This trio is their dynamic is so great. They're so great
My favorite
together.
line though that destroyed me, Alexa, is, "No saint has ever watched over me, not the way you have."
And then we're all done. Oh, and the crows also got to say their iconic line in this episode. They are basically hitching a ride on the skiff.
As pretending, conning their way through life. As they do.
And
Jasper is just like, it's just as horrible as I remember. That's
if I die, you need to make sure like this, like that. And then the other two are like, we're not. Kaz goes, we're not going to.
No one's going to die today.
And then he says, no mourners. And Inej goes, no funerals. And I'm just like, so good, so good. So we're at a crucial point because this is the big moment. They're going to enter the fold, and the Darkling is going to use Alina's power, and we're going to see what that does. I actually have no idea how exactly they're going to end it. For the crows specifically, I don't know. I know they'll just make it across. I don't know what they're going to do after. Oh, and our tracker has obviously hitched a ride because where Alina goes, he goes, basically. So
we're off to a great season finale.
I know. I'm curious to see how they're going to end it. Also, we have not seen Nina and Matthias in a while, so I hope those two are thriving in the wilderness.
I'm sure there'll be like a little...
keeping each other warm.
Among other things. Alrighty.
Alright. Check in later. Goodbye.
Then.
We finished watching
done.
Shadow and Bone. It was brilliant. It ended exactly the way I anticipated. The last shot, I guessed that would be the ending, and it's perfect for a lead into the next season.
Everything's just it's a lot of fan service, I find.
I was gonna say this episode is basically the fan service episode, but in a good way.
And it's conveniently woven into a very clear and logical narrative flow. Like, it was gonna go there anyway, but holy moly, how many fan Easter eggs and fan things do you wanna
I don't even know where
together
to start.
in one go?
Okay, so the ending of episode 7 is that they enter the fold. Alina's under the Darkling's control. Whatever. And then
the Darkling reveals his hand.
His real
which
hand
is to sort of like destroy the West Ravka,
Novokimbursk, the city on the other side of the fold.
Exactly, which instantly turns Zoya against him.
Yeah. Okay. So Zoya is also on this voyage because Zoya goes back and forth across the fold because her aunt lives in that city.
What made this infinitely interesting in terms of a turnout was the presence of the crows.
Okay. See. The best thing about this ending episode is that it all takes place basically at the end of Shadow and Bone, where everyone's crossing the fold, they're trying to demonstrate Alina's power, the Darkling is getting rid of his enemies, it's all like 2 birds, 1 stone, whatever.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that, aside from Mal, who is a stower on the ship, aside from him, the 3 crows are also on the ship.
Yeah, they kind of need
trying to get across. And this just makes for like, this entire episode, most of it, the chunk of it, is basically a big confrontation on the boat. So a lot of people die because the city is decimated and the other... Sorry, Cameron died, so now we're moving to the boat. So the big thing is that everyone's basically dead, and the only people who are pretty much alive at this point are like one of the Corporalnik, one of the Heartrenders, Zoya, Inej, Kaz, Jesper, Alina, Mal, and the Darkling.
Basically all of the game pieces,
fine.
Right?
They're all alive, right? And okay, first of all, the amount of team-ups that get done in the single combat battle. Jesper and Kaz go straight for the Darkling. Inej goes to Zoya, and Inej and Zoya end up sort of teaming up just a teensy bit, And then
superhero team up we never knew we wanted but needed.
Yeah, and then at some point Mal punches the Darkling in the face, kind of knocks him off the boat, and they tussle in the sands of the fold because appropriate time for that.
But not before Inej manages to like throw a knife at the Darkling.
Yeah,
just
she's the only one who manages to actually hit him.
And I'm just like, girl.
And then the other person who is able to severely injure him is Alina, because she cuts out the thing that is
sort of
allowing
yeah.
him to control her. And then she reveals to him that the real truth about the amplifiers is it's different if it's given versus taken. And so this whole thing happens. Jesper saves the day once again by murdering the Heartrender that is trying to kill everyone else. As usual, with his usual charm. Okay, the first thing that made us all pretty much freak out is that there's a shot where it's Jesper, Kaz, and Inej, and behind them is Mal, and it's like a team up because according to Kaz, if he's not on their side, he's on.
If he's not on the general's crew, he's on our crew.
And I'm just like, yes, it is.
Did you just like fan servicey throw like a moment where
and then it gets
Mal is a crow now, like.
And then it gets better because Zoya, because she's so angry, also ends up helping them out, and it's just
so at the end of the day, we have, after they've sort of like thrown the Darkling to the Volcra, we have the crows.
The three crows.
We've got Mal
and Alina, and
then
Zoya.
we've got Zoya, all six of them.
And they're all just together, and I'm just like, this is the thing I did not know I wanted.
It's
but
like, when did
you can take all my money?
I don't like.
It's almost your birthday. Might as well be a birthday gift.
It's Sancta Alina, and then it's the crows, and then it's the other amplifier guy.
Yeah.
And the future king of Ravka. So it's just amazing how all of this like future for that's just probably I haven't read
the fact that there are multiple Kanej moments in Kaz and Inej. But my favorite one is the one where Inej is like, well, Alina needs me more than you, and he's like, I need you. And like I'm just like, give me all them food, you know. The repartee is still great. Jesper delivering all his lines with the same level of carefreeness that we've come to love. Important factor to note at this point is that it's funny because they really did it where the Darkling is portrayed as saying one thing but doing another.
Yeah, totally. And he believes the lies.
He believes in it so much that he is the actual hero. So he's just saying, you're the one who's looking at me and saying I'm a villain.
Yeah.
But his actions keep proving otherwise because he took Alina's agency and he even forces her into a position where she can't do anything. And he's like, it's my power now, not yours.
No, and he just completely.
And he basically murders the entirety of Novosibirsk.
And
casually.
I don't know, man. Like, I guess that's
the dignitaries.
It's true, and I guess that's attractive to people. Not so much to us.
Yeah.
But it makes for compelling villainy.
But damn, that ending though, when he walks right back out of the fold, which I knew was going to happen, I was just like, uh-oh. But the other thing that happens in this episode, which was super heartbreaking, is Nina and Matthias. Because you get to see them.
Oh my god.
They finally come to a point where they're like...
It was the first time we ever seen Nina and Matthias.
They hate each other on site.
Well, no,
that's not true.
Matthias hates Nina, like, on principle. And now we know why. And it's a terrible thing. And we always knew why. I mean, he was the reason he was in prison. But
they gave it so much more color because you get the things that are flashbacks in Six of Crows. You actually get to see them happen in real time.
In real time and in chronological
order. So like there was this beautiful like sort of blossoming relationship between them. They were kind of getting along really well and like almost enough that they were both considering leaving to be together. And then stuff goes down and Nina is forced to make a tough choice. It's either certain death, like she says, or him being put in jail.
And I have hereby concluded that all things
so
Nina and Matthias are just heartbreaking.
The angst of that last scene between the two of them, it's beautiful but painful.
There is not, and I usually am nitpicky about acting.
No,
there is not one single actor on this thing that's a weak link. If anything, Ben Barnes is the weakest link.
But that's because we know him as Ben Barnes.
But that doesn't even mean he did a bad performance.
No.
That's just the script, that's just he just has to play this dude. So I'm so glad that they gave him a little early on that whole when I was young and like
he has good moments. They gave him some great
world ripped out of his heart.
He's been acting for so long, so you can kind of tell because he's really good at morphing his expressions.
He's so grounded.
It goes from one to the other so fast.
So that his performance was the most muted by comparison, albeit not necessarily even bad at all. In fact, it was spectacular. He knocked that Darkling thing out of the park. He looked like I believe the lies.
I did too. I would have if I were in Alina's place. I would have believed it too.
He was every inch the despot in the making and in practice that he was supposed to play. And to me that and the fact that he played that role so well, and that role tends to get one dimensional.
It's really not though. He did a really good job with that.
He just so good.
So the ending, as predicted, I was like, how is this gonna end? And there was really only one way, because the end of the first book is that Mal and Alina escape and they board a boat so that they can go far, far away, you know. Except that I like what they did in this one in particular, because they do decide that they're going to come back and say, like, fix it.
Yeah.
Or try to fix it. And I like that instead of Mal feeling opposed to that, or not opposed to that, it's more like Mal being more focused on them getting out, he's actually willing to go back with her because he cares that much.
Yeah, and I like, obviously, this version of Mal infinitely better.
I love this version of Mal so
and
much.
I think this is what Mal should have always been anyway, I think.
I agree.
Mean, and the Mal in the books would have been given a chance to do the exact same thing if they went through the exact same order of events. It's just they ended up like cooking in their own terrible, you know, toxic juices for a while.
Yeah, and it's also because we see more of his perspective, because in the book it's really just Alina's side of the story. Which is not a bad thing. That's just how the book was told. It's just, I think this adaptation took advantage of the fact that we could follow other characters.
And we only have 8 episodes. There's only so much you can cram in there. So you either decide to be faithful to the terrible, nuanced decisions that characters make, or you decide to, okay, but what is the character through line? Like, if it's not intrinsic, like if they're gonna get there anyway and it doesn't take away from that through line, then just cut to the chase and then do it. Like Kaz. Be 100% honest with Inej from day one.
Yeah, because he's more he's less forthright with her in the books for a while.
And you can afford that if you have like several hundred pages to explore something. But we don't. And so for Kaz and Inej to have that, now it makes like, oh my god, I can't.
It's beautiful. Anyway, the ending is the same ship that Matthias is, you know, being hauled into as a slaver and Nina is on as a witness, is the ship that Kaz and Inej and Jesper are on, and also the ship that Mal and Alina are on, so everybody's together.
And everyone's recapitulations are kind of crazy, right? So Nina finds herself on the opposite side of heartbreak, which is always sort of what happens. The crows find themselves scheming once again. He's like, just like
it sets it up so perfectly.
We need a heart render
for the big heist, like the one that's coming. I hope they integrate it at some point. I don't think they're going to do it well, I don't know. They could do it in season 2 because Nina is now effectively out of commission, basically. And it sets it up too because Alina and Mal really are just trying to find a place to be safe first before they figure out what they're going to do next.
Yeah, it's making me want to read like the next book.
I'm just ready.
I just need to know what happens again.
Obviously, we really love Shadow and Bone. Yeah, I think it's brilliant. This is actually an adaptation that I can 100% get behind because they did such a good job.
So much.
It's beautiful. It's wonderful.
I'm rarely this happy with anything that
Me
goes to
too.
screen.
Me too. Like, I am very critical of like things that have been adapted into different mediums, and even though this one isn't, like, there are things that I'm just like, okay, which is barely any. Let's be real. What am I even talking about?
And to give people like no like work of art is ever rarely like perfect, and rightfully so. I mean,
this was really good.
This was great. It's just magnificent.
It's fun. It has its lighthearted, funny moments, and it has a lot of heart.
The last time I felt like this about a book that was sort of turned into like a screen thing was probably Ready Player One, actually.
Which was pretty cool too.
I mean, and The Lord of the Rings was obviously well loved and universally whatever, without having to talk about like trees and chairs and walls
and
for
a
like
whole meeting about the entire history of like whatever it is.
So
no
that
shades
was good
to
too.
Lord of the Rings.
No shades to Lord of the Rings. It's just they decided to skip all of that and just go straight to the
quest,
taking the Hobbits to Isengard, and then the memes were born. But no, highly recommend even if you're not like
I actually genuinely think even if you haven't ever read the books, you would enjoy it.
You should.
It's a good story.
Like it's all right. It's pretty decent. I'm sure people who aren't into the genre will have thoughts.
Yes.
But as fans of the genre,
of the series,
this is just great.
Everyone
who ever loved this thing is happy.
So I totally
Witcher is also another one. Netflix is knocking it out of the park with his book to.
I totally require season 2. I will be very upset if we don't get it. The things I'm most looking forward to in season 2 are Zoya being badass and just taking over the Second Army because she can.
Oh yeah, Zelensky has her own thing.
I'm also very much anticipating the arrival of a certain privateer. He has to be. There's no way he's not.
Are we talking about Captain Stormhund?
Yes, we are. My fave. And I am also looking forward to seeing what sort of heist. I don't even care, honestly. I don't even care what the Six of Crows gang is doing. They could do anything, and I would still be happy about it.
They could have just done a whole thing on the crows, and it would have been awesome.
I'm happy because it seems like the next step for them is that Nina will become part of their crew.
What's amazing to me is that we got the crows and Grisha crossover that we had been waiting for all our lives,
and it seamlessly fits together.
It's so good. I can't, like, I'm just thinking about it, it's like making me cry. It's so good.
Like, I am very impressed because I wasn't sure. Because when they were like, oh, it's like a prequel thing for the crows, blah, blah, blah. I was like, what does that even mean?
And once again, I don't know how much of a hand Lee Bardugo had in
Putting it all together.
Putting it all together executive. I mean, I'm 100% sure that the writers did an amazing job. I don't know how much she interfaced with the writers, but if she had any part of it at all, this is a test case for if you have a writer that has the talent to executive produce, let them do it, because it just the soul of what made people love the thing is just bright and shiny.
Yep.
Like a sun summoner.
Ah, love it. Anyway, we'll probably have some sit-down thoughts, review, whatever, before
we're not
this.
surrounded by, like,
goodbye.
discarded, like,
But these are
Chipotle,
like our unfiltered first thoughts after watching it. So thumbs up for this show. Definitely would recommend checking it out. It was
Probably
so
watch it
good,
again,
so
too.
good. I would. There are certain moments I really loved.
We'll, like, scrub through everything.
It was so good. Anyway, we will check in with you guys. Probably future us will check in with you
Future
guys.
us.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Hello.
All right.
Now that you've seen all of our spoiler
All the yelling,
thoughts.
all of the sort of like.
It was very like it was weirdly coherent, but also not, because you could tell there was a lot of emotion.
I wasn't even gonna go with coherent. It's just like a lot of yelling and a lot of just like pontificating mindlessly on my end. I'm speaking for me. Alexa.
Yeah.
Alexa was clearly sort of like in charge of like, we're heading in this direction, but also.
As you can tell, though, we really, really loved just about everything about this show. Like, it surprised us in ways that we did not anticipate, both in terms of like how the characters were, you know, portrayed, how the story was told, all of that good stuff. So
and I was happy that you took me along for the ride. I had totally like interesting.
I'm just glad you were caught up enough on the Grishaverse to watch it with me. Can you imagine if you still hadn't read?
Oh, that's terrible.
I would have been so sad.
That would have been
I would've
so.
been
It's like I have to watch this without you. But no, but I'd read Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows and Crooked.
You basically read everything except Rule of Wolves.
Except
which,
Rule of Wolves, yeah.
Side note, I told him after watching that he would definitely want to read Rule of Wolves because reasons.
I know, right?
If you know, you know.
So that's definitely sort of like right there.
Plus,
And-
I'm keeping all of my feelings about that particular one under wraps because we're gonna do a bookish breakdown.
I already know. Like there's like now more than ever, I am so like invested in the Grishaverse. So apparently it's Grisha, as they say it, on TV. And Lee apparently had a lot to do with this thing. So if she okayed Grisha, then it's Grisha. Then it's just I've been calling it Grisha for like ever, with an not an E, but whatever. It's cool. We'll catch up. I'll catch up.
Point being, the Shadow and Bone adaptation was great,
So good.
and you should definitely watch it.
Thanks for taking me along, love. I totally forgot until the day itself that we were gonna do like we're gonna have to do a reaction video, but that got filed away in the back of my head along with what I'm doing on Thursday.
I just thought it would be fun.
And then I'm like, oh, we're gonna do this, all right, and so we did, and it was great, and I'm happy. It's probably the first. It's the first time I'm doing a live react. I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the first time we've ever actually done it.
So
that was fun.
That was lovely, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, maybe we'll do them again in the future if we get to watch anything else.
I mean, season 2 better happen, and when it does, expect another one of these.
All I will be able to say about season 2
Coming your
will
way.
be specifically geared towards a particular character that makes an appearance. So,
Stunned.
anyway, we hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll be back with one of our regular videos soon.
Bye.